The security camera had recorded everything. The break-in, the shattered glass and its pieces scattering everywhere, the 6 hours spent inside, and the man's lips moving. Who he was talking to was never clear. There was no one in the car, but he kept whispering. Security hadn't called 911, because what they saw on the screen wasn't a criminal act. They saw something far more frightening, a man's complete unraveling. And when the police arrived, what they found inside left them speechless. This was David Hasselhoff's night that nobody knew about, and it nearly became his last. When security guard Jeremy looked at the monitor for the third time, he wanted to make sure what the screen was showing was real. Camera 4, Lot B, 2:47 a.m. There was a figure inside the black Trans Am, moving but not leaving. Jeremy zoomed in, then waited, because he knew this car, everyone would. This car sitting in Universal Studios' backlot wasn't just a prop, it was an icon.
KITT
From Knight Rider, and someone had broken into it. But the intruder was even more interesting. When Jeremy zoomed in again, he saw the face, David Hasselhoff, himself, gripping the steering wheel, staring ahead, lips moving.
KITT.
He was talking. He wasn't talking to anyone because the car was empty, but he was still talking. Marcus, the young guard beside Jeremy, leaned toward the screen. Is that David Hasselhoff?
Yes.
What's he doing there? Jeremy didn't answer, because he didn't know. But 20 years of security experience had taught him something. When people sneak into old sets in the middle of the night and climb into cars, they usually don't have good reasons. Usually they're running from something, or running from themselves. I'm calling the cops, Marcus said, reaching for the phone. No, Jeremy extended his hand. Wait first. But he broke in. He smashed the window. I know what he did, but if we call the cops, this'll be in every newspaper tomorrow morning. David Hasselhoff arrested. Hasselhoff detained for trespassing. We'll ruin this man's life. He's already ruining his own life, Marcus said, pointing at the screen. Look at him. He's talking to a car. Jeremy looked again, and Marcus was right. David Hasselhoff was talking. His lips were moving. His hands were clenched tight on the steering wheel. His head was bowed, and his shoulders were shaking.
KITT.
Was he crying? Jeremy zoomed in, but couldn't tell. But he saw something. The expression on David Hasselhoff's face. Lost, broken, exhausted. This wasn't a famous man's rogue night out. This was a collapse. Call his daughter, Jeremy said. Haley Hasselhoff. Find her number and call. Not the police, her. But to understand how that night began, we need to go back 12 hours, to David Hasselhoff's house in Beverly Hills, to the afternoon when the divorce settlement was signed, and to where a man goes when he can't find anywhere to take refuge. The lawyer had come at noon. Gray suit, leather briefcase, polite smile. He was professional, distant but courteous. He laid the papers in front of David. The signature lines were marked with yellow stickers. It was very simple. Just sign here, initial here, and thus his third marriage would officially end. David signed. When the pen touched the paper, he expected to feel something strange. Pain, regret, something. But he felt nothing. Just emptiness, just finality, just the feeling of again. The lawyer collected the papers. I'm sorry, David, he said, but there was no real sorrow in his voice. It was just procedure, just a conversation that had to happen. David nodded. Thanks. Call if you need anything. Will do. But they both knew David wouldn't call, because what he needed wasn't something a lawyer could provide. After the lawyer left, David was alone in the house. Big house, silent rooms, walls full of awards, photos, gold records. David Hasselhoff and the Berlin Wall. David Hasselhoff and the Baywatch cast. David Hasselhoff and Knight Rider, a successful man's home. But that afternoon, after signing those papers, David only saw the museum, the monument to the past, empty rooms displaying an exhibit of who he used to be. He picked up his phone, thought about calling his daughters, but what would he say? It happened again. They already knew. I'm lonely. They knew that too. I need to talk. He'd been saying that for years, and for years they'd been listening, until they got tired, until they understood they were being left vulnerable, until they understood they had to protect their own lives. He put the phone down, went to the bar, the small wooden bar next to the kitchen. The bottles were still lined up. They always were. Alcohol never ran out in David Hasselhoff's house. Vodka, whiskey, gin, tequila, every variety and brand, as if he were a bar supplier. But in reality there was only one customer, and that was enough. He took a bottle of vodka, poured a glass, then stopped, held the glass, looked at the clear liquid. This liquid had kept him company for years, on lonely nights, on difficult days, after disappointments, after shames, after every "why are you like this?" question. Vodka was always there, without judging, without asking questions, just being there. But that afternoon, as the sun filtered through the windows, as the house was so quiet, David Hasselhoff looked at the glass and realized something. This wasn't keeping him company anymore, it was just numbing him, and that was the difference between companionship and numbing. Companions stay with you, numbing just delays the pain, and right then David thought, who will stay with me, really stay, without judging, without leaving, just being there? Who is there? The answer was painful. No one. His family was distant, because he'd worn them out. Friends. There were no real friends in Hollywood, only acquaintances, only people who were around when you were successful, when you were famous, when you were useful, but someone who would really listen, someone who would really care. And then a strange thought came. He thought of KITT. KITT from Knight Rider, the black Trans Am, the talking car, the artificial intelligence. On screen KITT talked to David every episode. Michael, be careful. Michael, according to my analysis. Michael, I'm always with you. Throughout the series, KITT was Michael Knight's only true friend to David's character.
We never judged.
Never abandoned, just was there. David put the glass down, and an idea came. A ridiculous idea, a desperate idea, but an idea. He wanted to see KITT, the real KITT, the car itself, because maybe, just maybe, if he was next to that car, he'd feel like in the script, not alone, understood, like he had a friend. He didn't even check the time, took his keys, put on his jacket, and got in his car. He knew where he was going. Universal Studios, the back lots. KITT was there, as a museum piece, as a preserved prop, as a tourist attraction. But for David it was something else, a memory, from a time when he mattered, from a time when he had meaning, from a time when he had a friend. At midnight, Universal Studios back lots were empty. There was security, of course. There were cameras, but David didn't care. He parked, walked, found the controlled lots, and there, among other famous cars, he saw KITT, the black Trans Am, shiny, preserved, standing like a work of art in a museum. David approached. The car was locked. Of course it was locked, but David couldn't be stopped, because he needed to get inside. He needed to sit in that seat. He needed to hold that steering wheel. He needed to feel like he did, like he was on screen, like he was still Michael Knight, like he still mattered. He found a rock, not big, but big enough, and without hesitation, without thinking, he smashed the side window. The sound was sharp and clean, glass pieces scattered everywhere. Then silence. David waited. Would an alarm sound? Would security come? But nothing happened. Just the silence of night. Just reflections on the broken glass. David reached inside, opened the door, and climbed in, sat in the driver's seat, closed the door, and suddenly everything changed. Outside, David Hasselhoff was a lost celebrity, a divorced man, a lonely father.
Would inside KITT.
When he sat in that seat, when he held that steering wheel, David felt something else. Home, that's what it was. It felt like home, because he'd spent years in this seat. He'd held this steering wheel thousands of times, and this car, even without that fake artificial intelligence voice, had never told him he was wrong, never abandoned him, just been there. "Hello, KITT," David said aloud. His voice rang strangely inside the car. There was no answer, of course. Kate wasn't real, never had been, but David didn't care. He kept talking. "It's been a long time, KITT," David. "Too long." Silence. "I know what you're thinking. Michael, what are you doing here? Midnight. Broken glass. This doesn't make sense." "You're right. It doesn't make sense. But nothing makes sense anymore." David's voice cracked. His eyes teared up. His hands trembled on the wheel. My third marriage is over, Kate. Third. I've been married 3 times, failed 3 times. When will I learn? When will I understand that the problem isn't them? The problem is me. Silence. Dark car. Broken window. A man alone. My daughters won't talk to me. I mean, they talk, but they're not really talking. They're polite, courteous, but they're keeping distance, because they've learned they need to, because I always disappoint them, every time, every promise. David rested his head on the steering wheel, and here I am, midnight, in a car, talking to you, even knowing you're not real. But you know what, KITT? You're the only thing I can talk to, because you don't judge me. You're not disappointed. You're just here. You've always been here. 6 hours. David Hasselhoff sat inside KITT for 6 hours, talked, cried, sat silently, sometimes put his head on the wheel, sometimes looked at the sky, sometimes closed his eyes, and throughout all this time, he never left, because this felt like the only safe place. This felt like the only place that made sense. While Jeremy was watching the monitor, he found Haley Hasselhoff's number. He wanted to call, but he didn't know what to say. Your father is here, and inside a car. Your father broke the window, but we don't want to arrest him. How do you explain something like that? Finally he just called. Haley answered on the 3rd ring. Her voice was sleepy and worried. Hello, Miss Hasselhoff, my name is Jeremy. I'm the security chief at Universal Studios. I'm sorry to call at this hour, but your father is here. Silence. Then a deep breath. What did he do? He got into the KITT's car, broke the window, but did you call the police? No, not yet, because, Miss Hasselhoff, the car isn't that damaged. But your father, I think he needs help, not police. You. Another silence, longer. Then Haley's voice came, tired, sad, but firm. Where? Jeremy gave the address, and 20 minutes later, Haley Hasselhoff walked into the security office. No makeup, eyes swollen. She'd been woken up but came immediately, because her father was in trouble, again, as always. Where? She just said. Jeremy took her to the monitor. On screen David was still sitting, not moving, just sitting there. Haley looked. Her face revealed nothing, but her eyes shone. She wasn't crying, just exhaustion, very deep, very old exhaustion. Take me there, she said. When Haley approached KITT, her father's profile appeared. His head was resting on the steering wheel, motionless. For a moment Haley's heart stopped, but then she saw David's shoulders rise. He was breathing. Was he asleep? Had he passed out? Haley wasn't sure. She reached through the broken window, opened the door. Dad. David, startled, raised his head, looked at Haley, and an expression appeared on his face. Shame, relief, sadness, all at once. Haley. His voice was hoarse. What are you doing here? Security called. You broke the window. David looked at the broken glass, then at Haley. I'm sorry. Guess how many times you've said I'm sorry to me, Dad? Guess how many times? David couldn't answer, because he didn't know the answer. Too many to count. Get out of the car, Haley said. Her voice was tired but clear. Now, get out. David obeyed. Got out of KITT, tried to stand but his legs were numb, from sitting motionless for 6 hours. Haley reached out, stabilized him, and in that moment David realized his daughter was holding him up. Again, as always, she was always the one holding him up, always the one preventing him from falling. We're going home, Haley said. We're not discussing this. We're going home, and tomorrow we're finding treatment. Real treatment, not a weekend detox, real, long-term inpatient treatment. Because Dad, this is the last time. If I do this one more time, I won't come rescue you again in the middle of the night. I won't hope again. I won't put myself at risk again. This is your last chance. Do you understand? David nodded, couldn't speak, because he knew this was true. This was the last chance, and if he missed it, he wouldn't just lose his family. He'd lose himself. Maybe he already had. Haley led him to the car. Security watched but didn't intervene. Jeremy just nodded. Haley returned a thank you. And David Hasselhoff, the star of Knight Rider, the hero of the Berlin Wall, the Baywatch icon, was driven away, loaded into the car by his daughter. The next day David Hasselhoff entered treatment, real treatment, 90-day program, group therapy, individual therapy, detox, recovery, reckoning. He did all of it because he had no choice. Either he'd get better or he'd lose everything. And slowly, day by day, David began to understand something. He didn't need KITT. He didn't need a talking car. What he needed was real connection with real people, real relationships, not performance, not stage, reality. When he got out, months later, Haley was waiting, took him home, and something had changed between them. Not trust, not yet, but hope, maybe, a little hope. Maybe this time could be different. David never went to see KITT again, not to forget, to remember, not to remember the car, to remember the time he sat there talking to a prop. Oh, because that night had taught him something. Being famous, being loved, being iconic didn't matter. Only reality mattered. Real connection, real family, real recovery. The security camera had recorded everything. Oh, the break-in, the broken glass, the 6 hours. But what the recording didn't show was what David learned that night. No car, no character, no role could save him. Only reality could do that. And reality hurt. Reality was hard. But reality saved. David Hasselhoff went back to KITT. Oh. He was never really there. It was all a fantasy. But his daughter was real, and she was enough. She had always been enough.